Hi, I'm Alan SoCal, and I'm reviewing what we would call a universal power supply. And I'm going to tell you right off right from the start, I'm probably going to give this set 4 stars. And let me tell you why. And it has to do with why you might be looking to purchase this. You may be making a mistake, but you could be well informed and you know what you need. This is what I would call a low power supply. Um, Many of you may be familiar with the formula for power in watts. It's voltage times current in amperes. So this particular transforming device, which will take anything from 100 volts up to 240, and reform it to a DC, a direct current. And that voltage, that direct current voltage, can be adjusted in steps to specific voltage outputs by this little switch here. Now, all of that's typical to a standard universal power supply. Here's the big difference. This particular brand and model, and I hope I get this right, I probably won't. If I read it the way I see it, it would be SHNIT and then PWR, which has to be power. So SHNITPWR, I highly doubt that that's the proper vendor name, but that's the way it reads. So this power supply is rated at 30 watts. That means that if you take, let's say, the highest voltage that this will put out, which is 12 volts DC, and the question would be, well, if power 30 equals 12 times a number of amperes, what would that be? Well, it's simple algebra. Everybody jokes about algebra. In my businesses, my employees had to know basic algebra. It's used quite a bit when you have two values that you know, but that third one you don't. So anyway, many of you probably know this, and some of you may not. But power equals voltage times current. Well, if this is a 30-watt supply, if it's capable of taking any combination of voltage and current, but if you multiply the voltage that you need times the amount of current or electron rate or volume of electrons that your device would be using, you multiply those two together. If it's more than 30, you're in trouble. And in fact, they recommend 80% workload, which means you could, say, have a 2 ampere requirement from a device at 12 volts. 2 times 12 is 24, so you need 24 watts. That's pretty good, because if you took 30 times basically 0.8, which would be the 80% load, because they want a safety factor. So 8 times 3, shortcut, is 24. That's 24 watts. So if you do have a device that requires 2 amps at 12 volts, you can use this. But anything more than that, you're out. And typically with an LED array, if it's a small LED strip, basically 30 watts to 36 watts would be good. You might be able to run a small strip of LEDs with this safely. So that's my caution. I would be gracious, of course, and say it's my public service addition to this review, but that really is important. So don't get too excited when you see, ooh, it's universal and I could hook it up to just about anything that's 12 volts, because those transformers are so expensive. If they're expensive, it's probably because they're like 60 watt rated supplies, power supplies. I said transformer, so I think of of the more analog electronics that I'm used to, not so much digital, but you can generate a DC from an AC source using digital components. Anyway, so that's my caution. I will then tell you that this type of universal kit is available in a higher power rating. I did some searching on Amazon. There are some competitive items out there that are rated at 36 watts. In fact, it would almost appear that that's really where most of the vendors are going. I'm presuming the factories overseas realize that they've got to really have a higher power rating, or they should. Now, typically that would mean more money, that you'd be paying a bit more. This particular kit has a price point right now of, I believe, $16, rounded up a couple of pennies. So for 16 bucks, you get everything here. Well, you know what? You get a little more in this kit than you would in the competitive brands that I saw online that are also 16 bucks, but they only have 8 adapters. This vendor and this product, they give you 14 adapters. These are, by the way, called barrel connectors or barrel plugs or coax type plugs. And they're basically measured by their outside diameter of the barrel here and then the inside diameter here. And of course, the polarity could be either positive outside, negative internal, or flipped around. That leads me to the next accessory that this vendor gives you that the others don't. And the others might even tell you in their ad or their vendor page, make sure you indicate what polarity you need for the plug. So it's a universal kit, but the output of their supply, the polarity may be different than, you know. So long story short, this is what you get with this vendor. It's a polarity reversing cable, and you simply take the output from the supply, plug it in here, and this output is now just the reversed. Instead of, say, the positive being on the outside and the negative being on the inside of the barrel, it's just flipped the other way around, or vice versa. So that's a big plus. The 14 adapters, that's nice. The competitive product only has 8 adapters, but I will. So you do get quite a few of these. The competitives, if you need more wattage, you might want to look. They have the 8 most popular barrel or coaxial plugs. So you have a choice. You know, just think of it as $16 as the price point. Do you want to get the kit that's got more accessories but a lower power out, 30 watts, versus a few less plug accessories, but it's 36 watts? And those 6 watts can make a difference. So just wanted to share that. I thought this was going to be a slam dunk review. The other thing I will tell you, some of the other transforming supplies, this is this little yellow thing here. That's the dial to select your voltages. This one you can just turn it by finger. A couple of the others you have to use a little, they give you a tool, but you have to use basically a slotted screwdriver head. You go in and then you use that to turn. I find over time when you stick things into a slotted receiver, they tend to get worn. So I'm not a big fan of that. Usually a slotted switch head like that you'll find on appliances where you're only going to every now and then change the voltage. You know, if it's an international hairdryer is a good example. Anyway, a lot of information maybe, or maybe too much TMI. But anyway, just be aware of the wattage ratings on these power supplies. Lots of accessories doesn't mean you're going to be able to use it. This will not drive even medium-sized LED panel lights, not even close. If you've got a 60-watt light unit, at 12 volts, that's 5 amps that you need. And you need a safety, so really a more than 60 watts might even be good. But that's an example. So this is a good, this goes on my test bench, by the way, because I do have low amperage demand devices, like LED strips, being somewhat associated to the sign industry. This is something I can use, but it'll work on small wireless Wi-Fi devices, you know. So it's a good tool to have around. We'll have a quiz next Tuesday. Anyway, I'm giving it 4 stars. If it weren't for that price point, I would have given it 5 stars. But I I just realized when I was going through the written material that it's just 30 watts, not 36.